Somaliland existed for at least 25 years. Sorry, someone's just kicked the projector. Somebody could sort that out. And the purpose of my taking these pictures was for my own reasons, really, but I always had this ambition to be able to share with the world the extraordinary culture and history of the Somali people in general, but the north of Somalia, what is now Somaliland in particular. I was never paid to take these pictures. These pictures have been taken because I thought it was necessary to do so. And in order for that to happen, I have had to do all sorts of peculiar jobs to raise the money to come here. But once I was here, I have had the total and unanimous support of the Somali people. And the understanding has always been that these pictures should be shared. And so the majority of the time, these pictures are used in Europe to not only educate non-Somalis about the truth, the richness and the uniqueness of Somali culture and history, but also increasingly to support the people that you call Bagan Ellis, the ones that have supposedly lost their culture. So throughout the summer months, I host Somalis in the UK to come to my farm, where they not only see these pictures, but they also experience real, practical demonstrations of Somali culture. And in that way, we try to impress upon these Somalis who are not fortunate enough to be growing up here about the value of their culture and identity. So it's an absolute honour to be able to, for the first time, show these pictures back where they belong in Somaliland. To begin with, I'm actually not going to talk about the history of Somaliland. That will be after prayers. I'm going to talk about the history of the Remi, because after all of you are descended, either recently or in the past, from the nomadic culture which defines the majority of Somalis. And so we will begin by looking at some of those pictures that I have chronicled this wonderful life. Now today, if one goes to Europe and you stop any non-Somali in the street and you say to them, what do you know about Somalis or the Somali region? They will cite the usual terrible excuses. Oh, piracy, terrorism, famine, all that sort of nonsense. So the perception that the world has of Somalis in general is not realistic. It is not fair. And it wasn't always that way, because for thousands of years, the Somali people and the Somali region was a place to which the great civilizations of the world wanted to travel and wanted to do business with. And the sort of scenes that these people would have found when they arrived would have been scenes such as this. This is the area between His and Mait, and it is one of the oldest inhabited parts of the Somali region, if not Africa, if not the world. And these great civilizations that came arrived by sea. And it's exactly this sort of scene. And when you see this scene, you wonder who could possibly live here. This is the Alas Mountains. And they are absolutely bereft of greenery or life. But there is something there which is of immense value. Now, those civilizations included the pharaohs. This is a relief from Thebes which depicts a royal visit to what they called the land of Punt, which in all probability, if not actually in the Somali region, included vast areas of the Somali region. And what they are taking back in this picture is the wealth that grows in these Alas Mountains. Other civilizations followed, all of the great Persian and so on. This is an evidence of Roman glass jars that have been unearthed in the Sanag region. There are many other examples. These are pots from what is now Iraq and Iran, and prove evidence of a huge trade between the people that lived there, the Sasanians, the Persians, many other Arab civilizations, also the Chinese, the Hindis. All of these great civilizations came to the Somali region to do business with them. And they valued the Somali people, they valued this area for the wealth that it produced. Now, what they came to buy was what is growing on this side of the Alas Mountains. These are frankincense trees, In Somali, they produce maidi. Maidi is one of 2 species of frankincense, which was once of immense value. It is still of value to this day. But maidi is unique to the Somali region. It does not grow in Oman, it does not grow in Eritrea, it does not grow in any of the other parts of the world where you can find frankincense. And this was once the most valuable commodity in the world. And that is one of the reasons that Somalis were once so respected and so well known. And the wonderful thing about those trees is that they cannot be cultivated. And the people that live in this very arid region of the coast, they have a story that many, many centuries ago, thousands of years ago if not, some angels were flying overhead and they looked down at this desiccated landscape and the people that lived there and said, "These poor people, we have forgotten to give them anything of any value. They have nowhere to graze their animals." So they dropped from the sky these trees that produce this wonderful frankincense. And it looks as if someone has literally done that because they adhere to the rock face with no system of roots. So that is what the Somalis believe to this day. Now it is such an arid landscape that the people that live there cannot live there throughout the year. So throughout the winter months, they come down to the Heb and they do business with those people that come by sea to buy the goods that they have. And this tradition persists even to this day. The majority of people at this time of year will not be on the coast. They will be up in the mountains. And in order to realize how significant these mountains are, you only need to start climbing a short distance. And suddenly this torrid, hot coastal heat gives way to lush vegetation and tall trees. And by the time you reach the tops of the mountains, you have huge stands of trees of the sort that you would find in a Mediterranean climate. And these forests that grow on the sides of this massive escarpment also produced valuable products that the Somalis sold to all these visitors. Other aromatic gums and sandalwoods, trees that were used by the Arabs to build their boats, all sorts of valuable produce came from these hills. And as you rise up, the temperature drops dramatically, very dramatically, and the rainfall increases. And by the time you get near the summit, you get the sort of rain that you would experience in Europe. And here the forest is exceedingly lush. And all this happens very, very quickly. And in the tops of these mountains, you begin to find people who are living more permanently. People who have livestock, but people who also spend some of the year permanently habitating the mountains. But in order to travel from the coast up into the mountains, the people do not use tracks and roads traditionally. They use the doh, they use the tug, the dry riverbeds, which so infrequently hold water that the rest of the time they produce a wonderful smooth path. This is in the west of Somaliland. These are Hargiesa people, and they are preparing to travel to the tops of the mountains. And the roads that they use when they get into the mountains are the roads that their forefathers used. These are not roads made by machines. These are roads made by the passage of the feet of animals and people. These roads have existed for hundreds of years. This is the main trade route that linked the important trading city of Zayla with the important walled city of Hara in Ethiopia. And indeed, the goods that were passaged on these routes were sourced from well into Africa, and some people even believe that they came from as far south as the great civilizations of Zimbabwe. But certainly the hinterland of Ethiopia was traded along these routes. And the Hargiesa people that today you can see walking up this path, their forefathers would have levied the trains that passed backwards and forwards. They would have taken taxes from them, and they themselves would have taken goods back and forth. Today, the Hargiesa smuggle cigarettes. So these people you can see here, instead of smuggling valuable things, they take cigarettes from Zayla, they smuggle them into Ethiopia, and then they sneak them around the back of Hara and they sell them. So the Hargiesa are following a long tradition of illicit trade. Now, the remarkable thing about this amazing escarpment that lines the northern coast of Somaliland and indeed beyond and into Puntland is that it's not like mountains in other parts of the country which rise steeply then fall steeply the other side. This mountain appears to be flat on the top, And although you have climbed this great height, when you get there, it extends across what Somalis call the Ogo. This is this big